Okay, good to see everyone. So what I want to do today is I wanted to do a sort of a overview of what we've done. We learned the book of Jonah. I said it was going to be 4 sessions. We did it in 3, but obviously we can go on endlessly into the depth of it. So I want to kind of revisit some of the main themes that we discussed and understand it in a little deeper way, and then we'll take questions to understand this very important point that I want to bring out from the book of Jonah. So I want to go back. Somebody asked me at the end of last week's question what the name Yonah meant, and I discussed it. I mentioned Yonah means a dove, but I discussed it before we even started this series a little bit. I want to get into that a little bit more to understand the depth of why he is called Yonah, dove. And if you start to see, you'll see things that just blend together so deeply and so amazingly. So Yonah, as I said, means a dove. Okay, now what is the trait of the dove? We said the dove is fidelity. That's the quality of the dove. There's even one type of if it's a pigeon or a turtle dove or exactly which one it is, but there's one type that once it has a mate, it will and the mate dies, it will never marry anybody else, never be with anyone else. So the dove represents fidelity. What animal is called the opposite of the dove? So the opposite of the dove is called the orev, the raven. The raven is the opposite of the dove. Now, why is the raven the opposite of the dove? It's not that the raven is considered, say, infidelity, but the quality of faithfulness. What does that mean? A person gets married to somebody, and they're married, and then the expectation is they will be faithful. So what happens now in the process? Did the person, let's say a couple gets married, and then a lot of changes happen, and a lot of things go in ways they didn't want to. What is the trait that one person looks at the other and says, no matter what, I'm faithful? And the answer is that if the person you married was not who you thought they were in the very beginning, that's a mistake. You got to separate, got to divorce. I mean, not really, because that's not the case. But theoretically, if that was the case, then there's a mistake. I thought this person was this, and they're completely that. Let's say the person has gone through a lot of changes, a lot of problems. So now they are different. People are different over time. So what is the quality that keeps faithfulness in play? The quality is that I still see in the person how who I married, who I understood they were, is still there, even though everything looks to have changed. They're going through a hard time. They had this problem, that problem, whatever it is. But I know the person that I married, and the faithfulness means that I always see that person in the light of who they really are. That's the quality of the dove. I'm faithful means it's not like, the person's totally different, and I'm saying, well, I'm stuck in the situation. No, the point is the person is different, but the root of who they were, the deep essence of who they were, I still see it no matter what. So you might act poorly, you might act badly, but I know this person is that wonderful person I married. I got to help him get out of it. I may need.
Oh, my Rabbi Ingber seems to have frozen. Let's give him a second. Oh, Rabbi, you froze for a second.
Okay. Am I unfrozen now? For some reason, I'm having a lot of problems with my connection here. It's unstable, it says. All right, am I unfrozen now?
You're clear now. Yeah, you're clear now.
So what I was saying was that the quality of the dove, therefore, is the faithfulness means that I see in my spouse or in the person that I'm faithful to what my original relationship was, even though there might come external things that may make it look I don't see anymore. But I realize, no, there's something else, something deeper that's always there that I'm always connected to. That's the faithfulness of the dove. The raven is called the opposite. The raven, the sages tell us that when the child is, the raven first has a child, the baby ravens, that it says the parents don't feed the raven, the babies. Why not? Because it says that they come out lighter. The raven gets darker as it gets older, and it comes out lighter. And the parent says, "Hey, this is not my kid. I'm not feeding this one. This is not me." And therefore, the raven is called cruel. And the Talmud says how there are these worms and things that come through the excrement of the animal. The baby eats those worms in the beginning. However it works, whatever the sages are pointing out, but they're showing there's a certain level of disconnect from the parent to the child because it's not my kid. In Hebrew, that's the word achzar. Achzar means cruel. The raven is called cruel. But the word achzar means ach, only, zar, strange. You're strange. You're not with me. You're not part of me. I don't have to support you. I don't have to help you. So the raven is the epitome of considering looking at something as being away from me. This is not me. I don't have any connection to it. I don't see the greatness. I don't see the link. I don't see the faithfulness. I don't see any of that. That's the raven. And therefore, the raven is considered to be cruel in a sense. The Talmud even talks about, has a case of this person who was doing a medical procedure and there was blood coming out, and the ravens would go onto the blood. What does that mean, the ravens go onto the blood? What does it mean to be cruel? I want to ask you a question. Let's say I have a person who is the executioner in the kingdom. He's the executioner. Is he cruel?
No, he's an officer of the court.
Right. So kind of depends. If the guy is saying, listen, I have to kill this person because they've done this terrible thing and they're destroying the world, and therefore their sentence is to be killed, and I feel terrible that I have to do it, but it has to be done. Then they're doing their job, but they understand the sadness of losing this person. What happens if the executioner starts to enjoy what they're doing? That's a problem. And that's why it even says there's in the Torah, we have a way that we make animals kosher. We shech them, which I can show you is actually the least painful way for the animal to die. Soon as the trachea and the esophagus are cut, the animal dies, doesn't feel pain, even though it might thresh around, it's not feeling anything. And therefore, it's a compassionate way to kill the animal, to end the animal's life. However, it says that a person who is a butcher, this guy who does it, has to be careful because he gets desensitized to it. Yeah, kill another animal. Whoa, no. Before you kill the animal, maybe you should say, listen, if I eat you properly, eat you with good intention to elevate you. But therefore, a raven is the symbol of someone who's achzar, is cruel. I'm doing this thing, I'm attracted to blood, all these things, because I get off on even as an executioner, I enjoy the punishment of the person. That's really bad. Now, if the raven and the Yonah are opposites, then obviously, as Cheyenne said back 5 weeks ago, it's very fascinating that those were the two birds that Noah sent out from the Teva, from the ark. He wanted to send the raven. And it says the raven didn't want to go. Right? He sent the raven, said he went, and he came right back. The raven said, I don't want to go on this messenger ship that you're sending me to see if the world is habitable again. I don't want to do that. So he was stuck. So what did he do? He sent the Yonah. a dove. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I got a good question for you. If the Yonah is going to do the job, then why didn't Noah think of the Yonah originally? Why do you want the raven? Especially knowing the raven has some kind of traits that are not considered to be the greatest of traits. Okay, every animal, by the way, has different qualities. Okay, an animal is an animal. It doesn't. It's like a person. It doesn't choose to be this way. It's programmed. That's why the word in Hebrew for animal is called bahma, behema. Behema means what's in it is what it is. It is programmed to be that way. As opposed to a person called an Adam, is the word Adama, is the word of earth, because it's all potentiality. I make myself. An animal is programmed to have certain traits. Doesn't mean that they're nicer or better, but we can learn there's different qualities in each animal. So if a raven has a quality towards some level of cruelty, why did Noah want to send the raven? He didn't want to go. He said, okay, I'll send the dove. Good question, right? So it says, why didn't the raven want to go? I tell you, there's two reasons why the raven didn't want to go, and these are two crazy reasons, fascinating, and we'll understand this. We'll start to get in some of the depth of the story of Yonah from a different angle. So one of the things is the raven didn't want to go. It says that he suspected Noah regarding his wife. Right? Because there were two of each type, except for the 7 that were the offerings that Jonah brought in, but every animal was 2, right? The famous song was kids, Tuesday by Tuesdays, right? There were 2, there was male, female. And so he said, I suspect you, I'm not going to go out and do this mission because I suspect you are going to do something to my wife. Now, what do you think he's going to do? Does he think it sounds like he's going to have relations with the? I don't know what it sounds. It sounds wild. He's going to have relations, or he's going to harm. He's going to harm her. And I want to tell you, there's an amazing principle you have to know. The principle goes like this: whoever disqualifies somebody has that same problem themselves. So it's a principle. So if you are a guy, if you're a raven, and you look at everything with that slant towards cruelty, so you can't imagine that that Noah is sending you out for a good purpose. What's he got cooking here? Because that's the way he functions. So the first reason he didn't want to go is because he was suspicious. His nature had that quality, so he blamed it on what's he sending me out for? Okay. Now, listen to the second reason. The second reason it says was because the raven has another job it's going to do in the future. You know what the other job is? The other job the raven did, if you look in the book of Kings, you'll see an amazing story there. The story of Eliyahu HaNavi, Elijah the prophet. Elijah the prophet, he was living during the time of the evil king Ahab in English. And Ahab was very bad. He was making the Jews sin. He brought idolatry in. He married Jezebel, who was not a Jewish woman. She was the daughter of a king of the nations, and she brought idolatry in. Terrible, terrible stuff. So Eliyahu Navi sees that the people are going off. They're doing bad things. So it says that he called for a famine. He prayed to God not to bring any rain until the people changed. Now, what happened? So Eliyahu, when the king Ahab hears that Eliyahu prayed to Hashem to stop the rain, so Ahab is going to go find Eliyahu and kill him. God tells Eliyahu, go to this place called Nachal Karis, go to this wadi, has water or a stream, and go stay there, and you'll live there. What am I going to eat? I got water there, but I'm going to be hiding out in the desert by there's some little river there. I have some water, but what am I going to eat? So it says in the text that God says that I'm going to send you food. There will be a delivery every day. Amazon will be delivering to your door every day. But who's going to be the Amazon delivery boy? It's going to be the raven. The ravens, it said it brought the food from Ahab's court, where he was preparing all the food because he was the rich guy he was the king. He wasn't starving. And the ravens would draw up the bread and meat and they'd bring it to Elijah the prophet. So the raven can't go because he's got another job. He's going to bring Elijah the prophet. He's going to bring him food in the future. So I say, can't do two things at once. Nonsense. Well, he has a job. He's going to bring Elijah the food. And this is so weird. Why are the ravens, who we said have a quality of cruelty, why are they the ones bringing Elijah the food? And then they can't do the other thing. They can't go out for Noah, because they're going to do the thing for Eliyahu later. Why can't they do both? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go a little deeper here. Rod, you asked me to go a little deep. We'll go a little deep here. So now if you start thinking about it and you read the story a little further, you see, wait a minute. Something else is bizarre here. What happened was Hashem made it. God made it that the river that Eliyahu Navi was drinking from dried up because it was a drought. And the reason why God did that, because he wanted Eliyahu to go and to deal with the situation and not give the people this hard problem of a drought. So now Eliyahu had a problem. He had no water either. And God moved that so Eliyahu would take the next step to end the drought by forcing the issue and dealing with Achav directly, and the people who were having such a hard time would be supported. So it says he goes to this. God says, "Okay, leave the valley, the place with the Nachal Karis, and go to this place. And there's this woman there. This place called Sfrat." And this woman there, a woman with her child, she's going to support you. So he goes, and this woman does tremendous kindness. He says to her, "Listen, make me, can you give me something to eat?" She says, "Listen, I don't have anything." I says, I was about to get a few sticks, cook the last piece of bread for me and my son, and then we were going to die. But Hashem arranged this so that she would be able to save this woman and her child. So Eliyahu goes there and he says to her, "Listen, here's what you got to do. Go and make your flour from the little bit you have, give to me first." Not because Eliyahu wanted first, but because Eliyahu knew that if she would make that level of relating to God by giving his prophet, that was how she'd be protected. And he says, if you do that, you're going to see that your little little bit of flour you have is never going to go dry. It's going to stay. You always somehow miracles happen. You're going to always have flour, and you have a little bit of oil. It's going to stay. It's going to stay always stuff in there. She does that, and it happens. And the text says that she lived now. So listen to this whole thing. So Eliyahu Navi now is going. And because God wanted this woman to survive, she had some tremendous merits that she would have died. The prophet goes there. She's willing to give charity and kindness to him, and she ends up being the beneficiary that she goes and she lives. Now, let's get to the story now. So now what happens, if you remember the story, what happens is that her son dies. And she says, what's going on here? Eliyahu, you came here, maybe you made it worse to me because now, maybe my deeds don't look so good. I'm next to you. She says something to Eliyahu like you got to take care of this. Somehow this thing happened somehow from our, you're coming here or something. So Eliyahu says to give her the child that had died. And it says in the text that he breathes in the child, and he prays to God, and the child comes back to life. Now, this is not something that happens very often, ever, right? Eliyahu Navi did it, and Elisha the prophet did it, but it's not, the coming back from the dead is not something that is in our reality. The law is, if somebody is sick, you could pray for them to get healed. If they die, you can't pray for them to come back. That's not in this world. These are things that only God does, and God gave this gift that Eliyahu Navi did this. But who is the child? So you guys said it. I was going to question if I was going to share this, but you've already shared it. You've already said it. That child was Yonah. Whoa, wait a minute. I got now these weird connection between the Yonah, the dove, the ravens that are feeding Eliyahu Navi. Eliyahu comes and he goes to this woman. He ends up saving her life. The child dies, and then he helps the child come back. And the child is Yonah. His name is Yonah. What's going on? Now let's go one more step, and then we'll try to figure this whole thing out. Not the whole thing. We'll try to get some taste of it. So what happens then is that when Eliyahu Navi comes back, God says, go to Achav and straighten his stuff out. So he goes to the king Ahab, Achav, and Achav says, is that you, Eliyahu, who has just ruined the Jewish people by bringing the drought? And he says, I didn't ruin them. You're the ruiner of the Jewish people with all the things you've done. He says, okay, listen, you want to go and let the people decide? No more dancing at two weddings here. They serve God, they serve idolatry. We have this showdown. And they go to that Mount Carmel, and the famous story there where Eliyahu says they should bring all of their false prophets and this whole story, and if they could do something, let them get this miracle, and God will answer their offerings. And they do, and they scream, and they cut themselves, and do all these things, and nothing happens. And they would try and do trickery also. And sages tell us they were trying to light it underneath and do all these things, and nothing worked. Then Eliyahu prays to Hashem, and the fire comes down, and the miracle is double because he put water on the altar. There's water, and now fire is going to eat it up. Fire comes. The people see this, and they all scream out, Hashem hu Elokim. Hashem is God. All right. I mean, if you had a moment where you saw this showdown and the fire comes from the heaven and burns up the water and the offering, you would say, and that's what happens. And they kill the false prophets, and that's what's going on. It's unbelievable. And Ahab is moved by this. He even repents to a degree. But his wife, Jezebel says, good trick, Eliyahu, but don't worry. Everyone's going to forget about it soon. And when they forget about it, I'm going to come for you and I'll kill you then. Eliyahu ends up going into the desert. And then he comes to Mount Sinai and says to God, I've avenged your people, but what could I do? And it seems that Eliyahu is talking about the problem of how the people are acting. Yes, they got moved. They got excited. They heard they saw this miracle. But you know what? The things wear off on people. It's the craziest thing, but it's true in our lives also. You may have had a moment you said, oh, this is true. This is clear. But then you go through your daily life and all the things that inspire us, they start to dissipate. So that's what happens. It happens to the people. Eliyahu was complaining. So God says, listen, you can't be the prophet then, because the prophet's job is to defend the people. So if you're going to see their problems, it's time for you to check out. Time for you to make Elisha, your student, the prophet. Eliyahu, you're tremendously righteous, tremendously great. But the quality is that you have to see in the people the good and always pull it out. That's the basic storyline and the backdrop. Now, based on that story of Eliyahu Navi and how Yonah came into this world, I want to explain to you what we learned in this book of Yonah. I want to now tie it together. The raven's problem is the problem of seeing the negative in everything. He likes the blood, even if he's the executioner. There's a place where when you have to be, I say to you, Oave Hashem Sinura, people who love God hate evil. Yes, that's true. But do you enjoy? Do you feel bad? Would you rather say, wow, I wish the bad people would change? Or do you kind of enjoy a little bit being the one to go and, yeah? That was the raven's problem. And that's why the raven couldn't go out from Noah. Because what was Noah saying? Noah was saying like this, listen, God destroyed the world, not because he wants to destroy the world. The people have become so bad, he had to start over again. Find the good point in the world and build on that. That's why he sent out the birds. He was saying to them, listen, go and see if the world can be rebuilt. If the world is dry, if the water is off the earth, that's a sign we can rebuild this world. It means go find the good that the world can be rebuilt again. And the raven didn't want to do the job. I can't do that. I don't see the good in things. I see the problem. He didn't want to go. You're looking at my wife, because he saw the problem. I'm not going to go that. Now, what does it mean that he had another job? Because eventually, everything in the world will go towards the good. The raven, it wasn't the time. Maybe the time of Eliyahu was another moment in history where the whole world could have seen Hashem is God. At that moment, and the whole world could have changed. And the raven then, at the end, when he's doing his mission with Eliyahu and Navi, later on, that could have been the chance. And the truth was, even though it didn't come to fruition, it did plant the seeds for that in the future. Now, that was what the raven's problem was. He didn't want to see the good. When Noah sent out the dove went, because the dove is fidelity. It wants to see the positive. The story of the dove of Yonah is a story. That's a story we just learned. Yonah, God says to him, go and go to Nineveh, this big city, and tell them that they're going to be destroyed if they don't change. Yonah doesn't want to do it. Why does he want to do it? Because Yonah is faithful. Now, who's he faithful to? So, on one level, he's faithful to his people. As we said in the beginning, if Nineveh goes and repents, it won't make the Jews look good because he's maybe telling them to repent and maybe they're not doing what they have to do. And these people who they do repent. So maybe his faithfulness, Yonah, is to his people, which is part of the prophet's obligation. However, as we asked, every prophet wants everyone in the world to do the right thing. So what's Yonah's faithfulness? It's really to Hashem, to God. Because he says, the people of Nineveh, I see what they're doing. They're not really going to change. As he said last time, they still had their idolatrous beliefs. They didn't really want to change. It was all a facade. It was external. And God, you're going to go and you're going to forgive them. And then these bad people are the ones who are going to destroy the 10 tribes of Israel. So what kind of thing is that? I'm not being faithful. I'm feeding the bad in the world. That's what Jonah said. Jonah said, I have to be the loving dove. I have to be faithful. It's got to be pure. My relationship to my people, my relationship to God has got to be pure. And what happens is that they're faking it, they're doing a pseudo. And since they're doing a pseudo returning, so it's going to boomerang where you're going to forgive them, God. They're going to continue their ways, end up exiling the 10 tribes. And that's what Jonah's whole motivation was that the faithfulness of seeing the relationship to God and to the people. And he didn't want to break that. And then what God told him was a similar thing that happened to Eliyahu Navi, Elijah the prophet. God said to him, listen, when I judge a people, they're judged as they are now. They're not judged if they're going to become not good later. Well, why is that? Why is that? If somebody will do something good later, yeah, God will look at the good thing they might do. If they do a bad thing later on, God will not judge them on the bad thing later, He does them today. And the reason for that is because you have to really dig to find out the good. And therefore, Jonah was willing to give up on Nineveh too quickly. He was willing to say, listen, I see it's not real. God said, but that's not your job. You see, justice is not in the hands of people. Now, I want to explain this to you. It's a very fascinating thing, but it's a problem in America. A lot of times we've had cases of people who have been killed, who begin the death penalty, who end up, we find out they're innocent. Or a guy spent 50 years in jail and he's innocent. That's a big problem. Now, we have to judge and this and that. In Jewish law is a very different system of judging, because hearsay, circumstantial evidence doesn't fly, because we have a deep belief that justice will always be meted out by God. See, if you think I need to, it's like, here we watch one of these like TV shows, like the all the police shows, it's always the theme. The theme is so powerful of justice that we kind of we jump into it and we make a little mistake there. Yes, you need to have justice because the person should not tolerate injustice. You got to stand up for justice. But you have to also realize at the same time that you're not the arbiter of everything in the world. So Jonah's saying, listen, how can I go and see the good in these people when I see they're not really that good and they're going to destroy my own people? Because that's not your calculation. Your calculation is to go and to try to find the positive in someone and fan it and bring it out. I can't reveal this fully to everyone what this means, but I just will tell you just to notice, to think about it. If you realize in Hebrew, the word Nineveh and the word Jonah is the same letters. I mean, I'm not allowed to explain what all that means, but it's a very, very deep idea here that Jonah and this town of Nineveh Jonah has to go and see in the people whatever good and try to pull that out. That's the job of the Jonah, of the dove. Jonah's whole lesson here that he gets from the very beginning of his life, he's brought back to life by Eliyahu Hanavi. Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Hanavi is the one it says he's the one who is a zealot for God. He's a zealot for God. But being a zealot for God, you have to be careful that as a zealot who wants to do what's right, you dig a little bit past and you say, wait a minute, there's something good inside this person. And if it is, my job is to pull it out. That was the lesson of Jonah. The lesson of Jonah was the apprehension of doing it when he saw the bigger picture and the negative ramifications. And God says to him, that's not your job in the world. I'm in charge of the justice system. Don't worry. Your job is to find people and see if there's something good in them and how do you fan that flame and bring it out. And that's what we have to do with people. It's like, and I always say this, in America, what's happened is it's become, unfortunately, an angry place. I don't recognize America in that sense. There's a lot of, there's a lot of anger. Everyone's angry at each other. Everyone's, it's amazing. Now, I'm not telling you there's not some really bad players. There really are. And when someone's a really evil player, you need to call it out. You can't go and say, let me appease Hitler and give him Czechoslovakia. You can't do that because there are people who have really, really evil intent. But if you look at a lot of people that that are kind of friends of yours and may have other views than you do, and you're having problems with them, it's many, if not most, and I'm sure it's most of them, there's good inside of them that you can dig out. And that's what the Yonah does. That's what the dove does. Yonah's whole life mission revolved around seeing that. It was like, it was a refinement of the level of seeing the good. It's funny because at the end, we don't know. As Sandy pointed out, God tells Yonah, you felt bad that this tree was one day here, one night, and died. You feel so bad, and I shouldn't go and have compassion on Nineveh, the city where there's so many people, and they don't know what they're talking about. They're like ignorant. We don't see Yonah's response. What did he say? He's like, Yonah, the book ended. He didn't say. What? The answer is obviously Yonah heard it. He heard the lesson. He said, yes, that's it. I'm struggling because I don't want to be the bad guy who sells out my people. They'll say I'm a false prophet, all these things. And I see that they're really, but he heard it at the end. That's what Yonah learns in the end. He learns to be the ultimate Yonah, the ultimate dove. The ultimate dove is the person who is not deluding himself in the negativity of people that are really evil, but he's able to see in people, even people who are ignorant. Listen, the guy wants to do good, he just doesn't get it. How many people do we know like that? How many people do you know that like they really just don't get it? I mean, for me, I try to avoid politics, but the world has gotten so bananas that like I sometimes listen. I said, how do people not, see the lies? It's like, when you were younger and they said like, the government has these back deals, this and that, and you're like, I don't know. But like a lot of things that are being exposed that people realize that like should realize, wait a minute, there's something going on here. And a lot of times people just get brainwashed, don't realize it. But if they're brainwashed, they're like Nineveh, where they don't know. Do they want to do good? Yeah. That's the power of the book of Yonah. Yonah learned the lesson through all the travails of the being inside the fish and all of the things that went through him, going back to, and Eliyahu Navi brings it back to life. He goes through all of these things to learn his lesson in the end, which is, although he always understood it, he saw it even in the people he didn't want to defend, Nineveh. He saw it, he said, wait a minute, okay, God's right. There's something special in there. That's the deep lesson and the summary of my ideas on the book of Yonah. Okay, we're going to open up to questions, ideas, comments.